The lawyer's voice is calm when he says it. Miss Carter, they've already made about $30,000 off your property. My mother stops stirring her coffee. My dad's hand freezes halfway to his mouth. My sister, Vanessa, actually laughs, like this is all some kind of joke. We're in this rented conference room downtown, fake plants in the corners, fluorescent lights humming overhead. There's a stack of papers on the table, my grandmother's will, the deed to her mountain cabin, years of emails and texts, and every single document has one thing in common. My name. Not Vanessa's. Not my parents'. Mine. Vanessa's cheeks go from pink to white when my lawyer slides the top page toward her. From this point forward, he says, you are not to set foot on Ms. Carter's property without her explicit written permission. She snaps, it's not her property, it's family property. I look her dead in the eye and say, you've excluded me from this family for years. You will not use my property to host holidays you don't even invite me to. But to understand how we got here, I need to start at the beginning. Hey everyone, welcome back. If this is your first time here, my name is Emily, and I share real stories of family betrayal and the quiet, legal revenge that follows. If you've ever felt like the family afterthought, the default caregiver, or the one who gets forgotten when it's time to celebrate, this story might feel uncomfortably familiar. If you find this story valuable, I'd appreciate your support, a like, a comment, or just choosing to stick around for more stories like this. And if something similar has happened to you, share your experience in the comments. Every story matters, and they help other people feel less alone. Alright, let me tell you how my family forgot me every Thanksgiving, until one year I brought a lawyer, a deed, and zero apologies. My name is Emily Carter, and I'm in my early 30s. I'm a pediatric nurse in Denver, Colorado, earning around $72,000 a year. It's not a fortune, but it's honest work, and I'm good at it. Kids trust me. Terrified parents calm down when I explain things carefully. Doctors ask for me by name. I've been married to my husband, Mark, for about 5 years now. He's a software developer making around $110,000 a year, and together we have a 4-year-old daughter named Lily. She's this wild, curious little human who believes Band-Aids and cuddles can fix almost everything. We live in a modest, but cozy townhome in Denver. Nothing fancy, but it's ours, and we've built a warm, happy life there. Growing up, though, warm and happy weren't exactly my first words for my family. My parents, Tom and Linda, live in Lakewood, in a fully paid-off house worth somewhere in the low 6 figures. My older sister, Vanessa, full name, Vanessa Cartero, lives in this picture-perfect West Highlands home that's easily worth $750,000. She's a real estate agent in the suburbs, pulling in about $145,000 a year, plus whatever side deals she never talks about. If you looked at our family photos, you'd probably say, oh, nice middle-class family. 2 daughters, everyone smiling. But what you wouldn't see is the invisible label taped to each of us. Vanessa, the golden child. Emily, the responsible one. Those labels decided everything. One of my earliest memories of the difference between us was when Vanessa turned 10. My parents rented out this party room at a local family center. There were balloons, streamers, a magician, a cake with her photo printed on it, and what felt like half the neighborhood running around high on sugar. I remember standing in the corner, holding a little goodie bag, watching my mom hover over Vanessa like she was made of glass. Princess, do you like the magician? My mom cooed. Vanessa flipped her hair and shrugged. He's okay. Next year, can we have a clown too? My mom laughed like it was the most delightful idea in the world. Anything for my girl. 2 years later, when I turned 10, my birthday was a grocery store cake at our kitchen table. No balloons, no magician, no rented room. My dad came home late from work, patted my shoulder, and said, sorry, kiddo, this week has been crazy. My mom lit 10 candles while the TV played some sitcom in the background. Vanessa scrolled on her phone and said, happy birthday, Em, without looking up. I told myself it didn't matter. Cake is cake, right? But those tiny differences added up. When Vanessa graduated from college, my parents threw this huge garden party in the backyard. They strung fairy lights across the fence, hired a catering company, and invited what felt like 80 people, family, Neighbors, Vanessa's friends, her professors. There was a DJ, speeches, and at the end of the night, my parents walked her out to the driveway and handed her keys. A used BMW. She squealed, jumped up and down, and cried into my mom's shoulder. "You deserve this," my mom said, voice thick with emotion. "We're so proud of you." Years later, when I finished nursing school, I was at home alone when my phone rang. "Hey, honey, congrats," my mom said. "We're really proud of you." "Thanks," I said, pressing the phone between my cheek and shoulder while folding laundry. "Are you guys doing anything this weekend? I could come by." "Oh, your dad's busy," she replied. "We'll celebrate properly another time. We sent you a little something." The little something turned out to be a $50 gift card and a card that said, "You're so responsible. Those student loans will build character." I remember staring at that line until the words blurred. Vanessa's tuition had been fully paid. Mine had been character building. It wasn't just the big celebrations, it was everyday conversations. When I was in high school, my dad had a minor heart scare. Nothing catastrophic, but serious enough that he needed follow-up appointments and lifestyle changes. Guess who handled all of that? I did. I took the bus after school to meet them at the hospital. I sat in waiting rooms, held my mom's hand, took notes when doctors talked about medications and diet changes. When I got old enough to drive, I took days off from my part-time job to drive my dad to cardiology check UPS. Vanessa? She lived only a short drive away by then. She would send texts. "You're so good at the caregiver role, Em. Dad is lucky you're such a natural nurse. You're better with medical stuff anyway." And when I'd mention how hard it was to juggle everything, my mom would say, "Well, Vanessa's very busy with her career. You're just more nurturing." That's how it always was. Vanessa got investments, parties, and praise. I got obligations, guilt, and the honor of being so responsible. If I brought it up, they'd laugh it off. "Oh, Emily, you're exaggerating. Don't be jealous of your sister's success. You know we love you both the same." Love might have been equal in their heads. But support? Priority? Basic respect? Those were not evenly distributed. Fast forward to a few years into my marriage. Mark and I had Lily, and I was working full-time as a pediatric nurse. Mark worked from home most days, coding and taking meetings in worn-in hoodies. We didn't have much family help, so we relied on daycare and tag team parenting. Vanessa had 2 kids by then and a husband who liked to flash their lifestyle on social media, vacation photos, new cars, fancy restaurants. My parents practically lived at their house. My mom would gush, "We're helping with the kids. You know how hard it is for Vanessa to juggle everything." I'd bite my tongue, staring at the sink full of dishes and the laundry mountain waiting for me after a 12-hour shift. Then came the Thanksgiving that changed everything. One Sunday afternoon that fall, my mom called. It was one of those chilly days where the sky is gray and you can smell snow coming. "Hey, honey," she said, her voice light. "We're thinking Thanksgiving will be a little smaller this year, just whoever can make it." I cradled my phone between my shoulder and ear while chopping vegetables. Lily was on the floor behind me, building towers with her blocks. "Oh, okay," I said. "Do you want me to bring anything? I can make green bean casserole or dessert, or I can come early to help cook." There was a pause. "We'll let you know," my mom replied. Vanessa is still figuring out the head count. Something about her tone made my stomach twist, but I let it go. Over the next week, I noticed our family group chat buzzing more than usual. I keep my phone on silent at work, so I'd catch up during my lunch breaks. There were messages like, "Thanksgiving head count, how many adults, how many kids? Vanessa, can you bring that really nice bottle of wine again? The one that was over 200. Who's doing pies this year?" I realized I wasn't seeing any questions directed at me. "No, Emily, can you bring, or what time is good for you?" So, one afternoon, I typed, "What time should we come on Thanksgiving? I'm trying to plan Lily's nap." The 3 blinking dots appeared, then disappeared. Finally, Vanessa responded. "Oh, Mom thought you were going to Mark's family this year. It's too tight this year anyway." Too tight. In a 5-bedroom house that had hosted 20 people before. A moment later, my dad chimed in, "We'll do a separate thing with you later, kiddo." I stared at the screen, feeling heat rise in my face. Separate thing. Later, Mark found me at the kitchen table, phone in hand. What happened? He asked. They're having Thanksgiving without us, I said, my voice flat. We're too tight. He frowned. Did you tell them we were planning on coming? Yes. Mom called and said smaller this year. I offered to bring food. I swallowed hard. They never actually said we were invited. He wrapped his arms around me. We can do our own Thanksgiving. Just us. We'll make it special for Lily. I nodded, but the hurt stuck like a bone in my throat. The next day, during a rare quiet moment at the nurse's station, I opened social media. There, near the top of my feed, was Vanessa's post from Thanksgiving Day. A long table, set for 12. My parents at one end, smiling. Vanessa and her husband at the other, their kids in perfectly coordinated outfits. A few cousins I'd always been close to. Candles, flowers, sparkling glasses. Every plate had a little handwritten name card. The caption, "So grateful for family." I zoomed in, scanning the names. No Emily. No Mark. No Lily. My hands literally shook as I read through the comments. Looks beautiful. Such a gorgeous family. So much love in one picture. Then I saw a comment from my cousin Megan. We missed Emily and little Lily. Vanessa had replied, they couldn't make it this year. They're so busy. Busy. Busy being uninvited, apparently. I put my phone down, feeling like the room was tilting. A coworker asked if I was okay. I mumbled something about a headache and focused on charting until my shift was over. That night, after Lily went to bed, I sat on the couch scrolling through that picture over and over. Mark sat next to me in silence, one hand on my knee. Do you want to call them? He asked softly. No, I said. The word surprised even me. I don't want to beg for a seat at that table. But the universe wasn't done with me yet. A few days later, I got a private message from Megan. Hey Em. I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. I thought you said you were coming. Something felt off. I think you should see this. Attached was a screenshot of a group chat I'd never even heard of. A family chat without me in it. My heart pounded as I clicked it open. The conversation was from a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving. My mom, let's just keep it simpler without Emily's diet restrictions and the kid running around. Vanessa, yeah, and she never hosts anyway. It's always her coming here and complaining about being tired. There were laughing emojis from a cousin. LOL true from another. I read that line, keep it simpler without Emily, over and over until the words blurred. Diet restrictions? I'm lactose intolerant. That's it. I bring my own food half the time so I don't cause trouble. The kid running around was my 4-year-old, their granddaughter and niece. And she never hosts anyway? We live in a small townhome with limited parking and one bathroom. Vanessa has a full dining room, a big yard, and a kitchen island the size of my entire living room. They never asked me to host. They just quietly decided I wasn't trying hard enough. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight, my hands cold. Mark found me again, sitting at the table with tears streaming down my face. What happened? He asked, more urgent this time. I handed him my phone. He read the screenshot, jaw tightening. Are you kidding me? That's what they really think, I whispered. I'm an inconvenience. And they lied about us being busy. He looked at me for a long moment. You know this isn't about you, right? This is about them needing someone to dump on so they feel better about how they treat Vanessa. I knew he was right. But that didn't make it hurt less. It was in that moment, staring at my family's words in black and white, that something in me finally snapped. I was done begging to be included. Done twisting myself into a pretzel to be the good daughter and reliable sister while they treated me like backup help. And there was one other thing they kept treating like family property that suddenly didn't feel like a shared treasure anymore. My grandmother's cabin. My maternal grandmother, Rose, had owned a small mountain cabin about an hour and a half from Denver. She'd bought it decades ago, when the area was still cheap and overlooked. By the time my sister and I were adults, it was this charming, slightly run-down place with a stunning view of the pines and a quiet lake down the hill. Growing up, that cabin was my sanctuary. When my grandmother got older, I'd drive up almost every week, bringing groceries, helping her clean, sitting with her on the porch while she told stories about when she was young. Vanessa would come up sometimes for holiday weekends with friends, but she never did the unglamorous part: the doctor's appointments, the grocery runs, the plumbing emergencies. One evening near the end of my grandmother's life, we sat on the porch wrapped in blankets. "You're the only one who comes up just to be with me," she said softly. I laughed. "That's not true. Vanessa comes sometimes." "Vanessa comes when it's convenient for her," my grandmother replied. "You come because your heart is here." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "This place is your safety net, Emily. When I'm gone, I want you and that little family of yours to be safe. Promise me you'll use it for yourself." At the time, I thought she meant emotionally. A place to escape. I didn't realize she meant legally, too. After she passed away, there was the usual chaos: funeral arrangements, estate paperwork. My parents told me the cabin is family property. We'll figure out what to do with it together. I was grieving and exhausted. I nodded. Sure. Okay. Over time, though, the language shifted. Vanessa would say things like, "One day we'll remodel it as my ski place." My mom would gush about Vanessa's Airbnb plans for the cabin. My dad would brag at barbecues: "My oldest is about to turn that old cabin into a money machine." Meanwhile, Mark and I barely used it. We couldn't afford to dump tens of thousands into renovations, and every time we asked about making it our weekend spot, my parents would say, "Let's not make any big decisions yet." A few months after my grandmother's funeral, I'd found an envelope with my name on it and a box of her things. Inside was the original will and a handwritten note. To my granddaughter, who visited me every week, it said, "The cabin is yours. Use it as your safety net. Don't let anyone pressure you into giving it up." The will was clear. The cabin went to my granddaughter, Emily Carter. There was no mention of Vanessa and no vague, for the whole family language. My parents knew this. They'd even referenced it once in an email to me, saying, "You know your grandmother wanted that cabin as your safety net." But in practice, they treated it like a shared toy they could allocate to their favorite child. Until that Thanksgiving screenshot, I'd pushed my discomfort down. I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to be the greedy one. Suddenly, I saw it differently. They happily excluded me from holidays because I was inconvenient. They lied about me on social media to maintain appearances. And behind my back, they were already planning how my inheritance would become Vanessa's future Airbnb project. I was done. Over the next couple of weeks, between shifts and bedtime stories with Lily, I started doing something I'd never done before in relation to my family. I collected receipts. I pulled up years of texts in our family chat where they referenced the cabin as Vanessa's future Airbnb or Vanessa's ski place. I screenshotted everything. I searched my email for any reference to the cabin. There it was, an email from my mom not long after my grandmother died. "Your grandmother wanted that cabin to be your safety net," she'd written. "We'll help you figure out what to do with it when things settle down." I saved it as a PDF. I dug through my file box and found my grandmother's will and that note addressed only to me. I took photos, then scanned them at work during my break, labeling each file carefully. When Mark saw what I was doing one evening, he raised an eyebrow. "Are we finally lawyering up?" he asked. "I think so," I said, feeling both terrified and weirdly calm. "I've been letting them walk all over me for so long. I'm tired." He nodded. "Then let's do it right. No half measures." The next day, during lunch, I searched for estate attorneys in Denver. I read reviews, filtered out the flashy, aggressive-sounding ones, and found a firm with a lot of experience in wills, property disputes, and family conflict. My hands trembled a little as I dialed. "Thank you for calling," the receptionist said. "How can we help you today?" I took a breath. My grandmother left me a cabin, and my family has been treating it like their property. I think they've been renting it out without my consent. I need to know what my options are. We scheduled a consultation for a few days later. Walking into that law office felt like stepping into a different world. It was quiet, with muted colors and shelves lined with thick legal books. My attorney, a calm woman in her 40s named Rachel, shook my hand and offered me water. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. I told her about my grandmother, the will, The note, my parents, family property, language, Vanessa's Airbnb plans. I pulled out my stack of printed emails and texts, sliding them across her desk. I showed her the photos of the will, the note, the email where my mom explicitly called the cabin my safety net. I mentioned what I'd heard through relatives, that Vanessa had already test run, renting the cabin to friends and maybe even strangers for weekends, with money changing hands. Rachel listened without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes. When I got to the Thanksgiving exclusion and the keep it simpler without Emily message, my voice cracked. She looked up at me, her expression softening. "I'm sorry," she said. "That's incredibly painful. But you did the right thing by coming in." She flipped through the documents. "Legally, this looks straightforward. The will names you specifically. There's no ambiguity. If the property deed hasn't been formally recorded solely in your name yet, that's step one. After that, if your family has been renting the cabin out, we can send a cease and desist and demand an accounting for any rental income they received without your permission." "How messy does this get?" I asked quietly. She shrugged slightly. "It can get messy emotionally, but legally, it's your property. We'll start with the least aggressive step, formally recording the deed and sending a clear letter outlining your ownership and expectations. If they cooperate, we can avoid court. If they don't, we escalate." Her retainer was $18,000. It was a lot. But Mark and I sat at the kitchen table that night, looked at our savings, and agreed. "This is about more than the cabin," he said. "This is about you drawing a line." So we paid it. Within days, Rachel's office helped me file the paperwork to record the deed in my name. For the first time, my grandmother's cabin wasn't just a sentimental idea. It was legally, formally mine. Rachel and her team then drafted a detailed letter addressed to my parents and Vanessa. It laid everything out clearly. The will language naming me as the sole heir to the cabin. The fact that the deed had now been recorded solely in my name. The evidence that they had treated it as family property and rented it without my consent. The calculation of rental income around $28,000 based on dates and rates we could verify. The letter gave them two options. 1. Immediately cease all use of the cabin without my explicit written permission, acknowledge in writing that the property belonged solely to me, and agree to repay $30,000 over 6 months to cover past rental income and associated damages. Or 2. Refuse, in which case we would file a lawsuit for trespassing, unjust enrichment, and any other applicable claims, seeking full back rent plus damages and legal costs. It was calm, factual, and devastating. Rachel slid the final draft across her desk for me to read. "How does this feel?" she asked. "Like I'm finally taking myself seriously," I said. We sent it via certified mail and email. Then, we waited. The silence from my parents and Vanessa lasted just long enough to make my stomach knot. Then, about a week later, my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. "Emily, this is your mother," she said, her voice tight. "We need to talk about this. Nonsense. Lawyers? Over a cabin? Call me back." She didn't mention Thanksgiving. She didn't mention the messages. I forwarded the voicemail to Rachel. A couple days after that, my dad sent a short email. "We're very upset. This is not what your grandmother would have wanted. We should talk as a family." Rachel sent a reply on my behalf. "Any discussions regarding the property will be conducted with my client and me present." Vanessa, on the other hand, took to social media in the vaguest, most passive-aggressive way possible. Nothing like greedy siblings ruining family harmony over money, she posted one evening. "Some people forget who was really there when Grandma was alive." A few of her friends commented, "Ugh, family sucks sometimes. Stay strong, girl. Money shows people's true colors." I didn't respond. I screenshotted it and added it to my growing folder. Rachel suggested we propose a neutral location for a family meeting. "Someplace public enough that people are on their best behavior," she said, "but private enough that we can talk." We ended up renting a conference room at a co-working space downtown. It had a long table, glass walls, and free coffee. I reserved it for a morning a couple weeks later and sent an invite. To my surprise, they all agreed to come. The morning of the meeting, my hands shook a little as I buttoned my blouse. Mark hugged me from behind. You don't have to go, he murmured. Yes, I do, I said. I need to look them in the eye when I finally stop being the doormat. We arranged for a friend to watch Lily, then drove downtown in silence. My stomach churned, but under the anxiety there was something else: resolve. The conference room was bright and slightly cold, the air smelling faintly of coffee and printer ink. Rachel was already there when we arrived, a neat stack of documents in front of her. She greeted us calmly. Remember, she said quietly, you don't have to justify your feelings. We're here to state facts and boundaries. A few minutes later, my parents walked in. My mom looked brittle and tight-lipped, dressed more formally than usual. My dad looked tired, like he hadn't slept well in days. Vanessa swept in last, in a stylish coat and heels, phone in hand. She gave me a glance that could have cut glass and sat down with a dramatic sigh. So, my mom said, clasping her hands, "What's this drama about?" Rachel didn't respond to the tone. She simply slid copies of the will, the recorded deed, and the settlement proposal across the table, one set for each of them. "Thank you all for coming," she said evenly. "As you can see, we have formal documentation here." Ms. Carter's grandmother left the mountain cabin to her explicitly. The deed has now been properly recorded in Emily's name, as it should have been from the beginning. Vanessa flipped through the papers and rolled her eyes. "Grandma wanted that cabin for all of us. She said so all the time." Rachel stayed calm. "The legal documentation is clear. Whatever informal sentiments may have been expressed, the will, which is binding, leaves the property to Emily alone." She turned to my parents. "In addition, we have evidence that the property has been used and rented out without Emily's consent. Based on the records we have, the total rental income is estimated at around $28,000. We have rounded that to $30,000 in the proposed settlement to simplify matters." My dad blinked. 30, that seems inflated." Rachel pulled out another sheet. "Here is a breakdown of the dates, rates, and estimated income, based on listings and messages we were able to obtain." I watched my parents' eyes scan the page. I could tell exactly when they saw the numbers that aligned with what they knew in their hearts. Vanessa slammed her hand on the table. "This is insane. You're treating us like criminals." Grandma would be horrified. I finally spoke. "What would horrify Grandma more?" I asked quietly. "Me enforcing her written wishes? Or are you turning her cabin into your future Airbnb project while cutting out the granddaughter who visited her every week?" Vanessa opened her mouth, closed it, then glared at me. "You're just jealous. You've always been jealous." "Jealous?" I repeated. "Of what? Being the golden child? Being the one mom and dad defended while they told me student loans would build character? Being the one they invited to Thanksgiving while telling people I was too busy to come?" My mom flinched. "That's not what happened." Rachel cleared her throat softly. "Actually, there's something else we should address." She pulled out a printed screenshot and slid it into the pile. "This," she said, "is a screenshot of a family group chat sent to Emily by a relative. In it, Linda writes, 'Let's just keep it simpler without Emily's diet restrictions and the kid running around.' Vanessa responds, 'Yeah, and she never hosts anyway.'" My mom's face went red. "You had no right to. Who sent that? That was a private conversation." Rachel didn't take the bait. "The point is not who sent it. The point is that Emily has been excluded and disparaged within this family for years, while at the same time her property has been treated as a communal asset to be exploited." My dad shifted in his chair. "We were just simplifying. Holidays are stressful." "We didn't mean." I cut in. "You didn't mean to hurt me? You meant every word. You just didn't expect me to see them." Silence settled over the table. Rachel tapped the settlement document. "Here is what we are offering to resolve this without litigation. First, you will acknowledge in writing that the cabin belongs solely to Emily. Second, you will immediately cease all use of the cabin unless explicitly invited by her. Third, you will repay $30,000 over the next 6 months to cover past rental income and related damages. If you agree, we sign today and that will be the end of it. If you refuse, we will file suit and seek full back rent, damages, and legal fees, which may result in a significantly higher amount owed and a public record of the dispute." Vanessa laughed a short, bitter laugh. "You're bluffing." You wouldn't actually drag your own family to court. I met her eyes. You're right. I wouldn't have. Not the old me. The one who kept giving and giving, hoping one day I'd be invited to the big table. I gestured to the documents. But I have a daughter now. And what you're teaching her by example is that it's okay to let people walk all over you if they're family. I'm not teaching her that. Not anymore. My mom's eyes filled with tears. Emily, be reasonable. We've always done our best. You know we love you. This isn't about love, I said, my voice steady. This is about respect. This is about honoring Grandma's wishes and acknowledging that I am not your backup generator for childcare and emotional labor while you funnel every perk and privilege to Vanessa. My dad rubbed his temple. 30,000 is a lot of money. It is, I agreed. But it's less than what you'd risk in court. And frankly, you've already made almost that much off a property that was never yours to monetize. Vanessa crossed her arms. I'm not paying a cent. If you want money, take it from Mom and Dad, since they're the ones who handled stuff. Rachel nodded slightly. To be clear, liability will be allocated based on who actually collected and controlled the rental income. If that was primarily Tom and Linda, they will bear the majority of the repayment obligation. However, continued trespass by any of you will be grounds for legal action. My parents looked at each other, having a silent conversation they'd clearly had many times before, how to smooth things over, how to keep the peace, how to avoid public embarrassment. Finally, my dad sighed. We'll sign, he muttered. We don't want a court battle. My mom nodded stiffly, eyes downcast. They both signed the settlement documents with shaking hands. Vanessa shoved the papers aside. Fine. Whatever. Enjoy your stupid cabin. Don't come crying to me when you can't afford to fix the roof. She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the room. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Rachel gathered the signed papers, slid a copy to me, and said quietly, "Congratulations. You just took your power back." In the weeks that followed, the fallout was intense, but also clarifying. Vanessa went on a social media rampage, posting vague quotes about toxic siblings and greed tearing families apart. She never used my name, but anyone who knew us understood who she meant. Some cousins reached out privately. Hey, I saw Vanessa's posts. What actually happened? I heard something about the cabin. Is it true it was left to you? We always wondered why your parents treated that place like Vanessa's. I sent a few of them a simple message. Grandma left it to me in her will. I finally enforced it. It's messy, but I'm at peace with my decision. Most of them responded with some version of, good for you. My parents, on the other hand, went quiet. No more daily group chat chatter. No more unsolicited advice about my life. Weeks passed with nothing but the occasional short text. How's Lily? Hope work is going well. I answered politely but briefly. I didn't initiate calls. I didn't send photos unless they asked. Not to punish them, but because I was tired of performing for people who saw me as optional. With the settlement payments, they grumbled but complied. Every month, a payment hit the account specified in the agreement. Rachel's office confirmed everything was on track. Meanwhile, Mark and I started spending time at the cabin. The first weekend we drove up after the deed was in my name, I stood on the porch and took a deep breath. The air smelled like pine and cold earth. The cabin was still a little shabby, old wallpaper, creaky floors, but it was ours. Legally. Emotionally. Fully. Lily ran from room to room, squealing. This is our vacation house. Kind of, I said, laughing. It's our quiet place. Our family place. We started small, fixing leaky faucets, painting walls, replacing the worst of the worn-out furniture. We couldn't afford a full renovation yet, but we didn't need a luxury ski lodge. We needed a place that felt safe and honest. That first Thanksgiving after the confrontation, we didn't wait to see if we were invited anywhere. We planned our own holiday at the cabin. We bought a modest turkey, a bag of potatoes, some canned cranberry sauce. We packed the car with groceries, Lily's favorite toys, and a stack of board games. I invited the cousins who had reached out with genuine support. A few said yes. They drove up with side dishes and store-bought pies, laughing as they carried everything in. At one point, my cousin Megan pulled me aside on the porch. I'm proud of you, she said. I know that wasn't easy. I looked out at the trees swaying in the cold wind. I kept thinking about Grandma, I said. She always told me not to let people push me around. I think she'd be happy we're here like this. Inside, the cabin was warm, the table a little mismatched but full. There were no personalized name cards or $100 bottles of wine. Just kids running around, adults laughing, and a turkey carved in a place where I finally, truly felt I belonged. My parents were not there. They were at Vanessa's house, from what I heard, with a smaller guest list. Apparently, some relatives had declined their invitation and chosen to come to the cabin instead. I didn't feel triumphant at that. Just grounded. Over time, the practical consequences of my choice became clear. The $30,000 my parents repaid went straight into a separate account earmarked for cabin repairs and Lily's future. We upgraded the heating, fixed the roof Vanessa had mocked, and put a little aside for emergencies. The cabin became our go-to spot for school breaks and long weekends. Mark brought his laptop and worked remotely from the dining table sometimes, looking out at the mountains between calls. I took long walks with Lily along the dirt road, teaching her the names of trees and birds. As for my parents, our relationship shifted permanently. They asked once if they could come up to the cabin like old times. I said calmly, not right now. Maybe someday if things change. But for now, I need this to be a boundary, not a shared space. They didn't like it, but they accepted it. They knew pushing too hard could mean legal consequences, and for the first time, they had something to lose if they ignored my boundaries. Vanessa hasn't been to the cabin since the meeting. She occasionally posts throwback photos from Grandma's place with captions like, "Miss this view," but she doesn't tag me. I used to stalk her account, reading between the lines. Now, I rarely check. Her opinion of me no longer governs how I see myself. Emotionally, the biggest change was internal. For most of my life, I believed that being the responsible one meant absorbing whatever unfairness came my way. I told myself it was my job to be understanding, to keep the peace, to swallow the hurt and show up anyway. But caregiving doesn't mean allowing people to use you. Being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. And being family doesn't give anyone the right to your time, your energy, or your property. Did the legal route feel extreme at times? Yes. It's not fun seeing your own parents' names on a settlement agreement. It's not easy knowing your sister is out there spinning a narrative where you're the villain. But here's what's also true. My grandmother's wishes are finally being honored. My daughter is growing up watching her mother enforce boundaries instead of crying in the kitchen over group chat messages. And I spend holidays now with people who actually want me there, not people who fit me in when it's convenient. I didn't pursue this just for revenge. I did it to protect myself, my little family, and my grandmother's legacy. But I won't lie, watching the people who treated me like an afterthought realize they no longer had access to my time, my emotional labor, or my inheritance because of their own choices. That felt satisfying. Not explosive, movie-style revenge. Just a quiet closing of a door they assumed would always be open. So that's my story. Sometimes the best revenge isn't hurting someone back, it's protecting yourself and letting their own choices catch up to them. If this resonated with you, I'd be grateful for your support, whether that's a like, a comment, or joining this community for more stories like this. Drop a comment below. Have you ever been forgotten by family for a holiday or treated like the backup plan while they happily took from you? How did you handle it? Every story you share helps someone else feel less alone. And if you're dealing with something similar right now, a messy inheritance of family property everyone thinks they're entitled to, or relatives who only remember you when they need help, document everything and get proper legal advice. You're not powerless, even if they've made you feel that way for years. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next story.